Every parent remembers the moment they first felt something was different. Maybe it was during a routine checkup. Maybe it was watching another baby at a playgroup laugh and point and wave while their own child sat quietly, lost somewhere inside themselves. Maybe it was a feeling that arrived slowly, quietly, the way fog rolls in not a single moment but a gradual accumulation of small things that didn't quite add up. And the hardest part about that feeling is this. Most parents who experience it look back later and say the same thing. The signs were there before age 2. They were there the whole time. I just didn't know what I was looking at. That is exactly what this video is about, because the window before age 2 is the most important window in autism identification, and the signs that appear in that window are nothing like what most people expect. Let's start by dismantling the image most people carry in their head when they hear the word autism. Most people picture a child who doesn't speak at all, a child who rocks back and forth, a child who is completely withdrawn from the world around them. And while those things can be part of autism for some children, they are not the early signs. They are often what autism looks like after years of going unidentified and unsupported. The signs that appear before age 2 are far more subtle, far more easy to explain away. And this is precisely why millions of children reach school age without anyone having connected the dots. So let's go through what those early signs actually look like, month by month in real children. In the first few months of life, one of the earliest and most consistent signs that researchers have identified is a difference in social attention. A typically developing newborn will orient toward faces almost from birth. By 6 weeks, they will make direct eye contact during feeding. By 2 months, they will smile back when you smile at them, not just a reflex but a real social smile that says, "I see you, and I recognize you." In babies who are later diagnosed with autism, this social orientation is often different. Not absent necessarily, but reduced. They may look at your face less consistently. They may not track your gaze when you look at something across the room. They may smile, but less frequently, and sometimes slightly off in timing, as if the social connection isn't quite landing the way it would in a neurotypical baby. These differences are so subtle in the early months that even experienced pediatricians often miss them at routine visits. But parents who spend hours every day with their baby sometimes feel something, even if they cannot name it yet. By 4 to 6 months, a typically developing baby is becoming genuinely interactive. But they laugh. They vocalize back and forth with caregivers in a rhythm that researchers call serve and return. You make a sound, they respond, you respond back, and a conversation is already beginning even without words. They reach for familiar faces. They show excitement when a parent enters the room. For some babies who are later identified as autistic, this back and forth interaction begins to look different during this period. The vocalizations may be there, but they may feel more like sounds happening in parallel rather than sounds directed at someone. The excitement at a parent's appearance may be less consistent. These are not signs that a parent is imagining things. These are real and measurable differences that show up in research studies even this early. But there are also differences that are incredibly easy to attribute to personality. She's just a calm baby. She's independent. He doesn't need as much attention as other babies, and so another few months pass. The period between 9 and 12 months is where the signs become more visible if you know what to look for. And there are 3 specific behaviors that developmental researchers consider some of the most reliable early indicators of autism at this age. The first is pointing. Around 9 to 12 months, typically developing babies begin to point at things, not to request them but to share them. They point at a dog across the street not because they want the dog but because they want you to see what they see. They want to share the experience with you. This is called declarative pointing, and is a profound act of social connection. It says, "Look at this with me." Many children who are later diagnosed with autism do not develop this type of pointing in the typical time frame. They may point to get something they want, but the pointing that says, "Share this with me," is often delayed or absent. The second behavior is joint attention. This is the ability to follow someone else's gaze or pointing finger and look at what they are looking at. If you point across the room and say, "Look at that," a typically developing 10-month-old will follow your point and look. This shared attention, this meeting of minds around a third thing, is one of the building blocks of social communication. Differences in joint attention at this age are one of the strongest early predictors of autism that researchers have found. The third behavior is response to name. By 10 months, most typically developing babies will reliably turn when their name is called, even from across a room, even when they're engaged in something else. They know their name and they respond to it as a social call. Some babies who are later diagnosed with autism respond to their name inconsistently at this age. Sometimes they respond and sometimes they don't, which leads parents to wonder about hearing before they consider anything else. Between 12 and 18 months, language development becomes a more visible indicator. Most children say their first words around 12 months and have a small but growing vocabulary by 15 to 18 months. They use words with intention. They say mama and mean mama. They say more and hold out their hand. But language differences in autism at this age are not always about absence of words. Some autistic children have words at 12 months and then lose them. This regression, where a child who is saying 5 or 6 words suddenly stops using them, is one of the most distressing early signs parents encounter, and one of the most important to take seriously, immediately. Other children develop words but use them differently, repeating phrases from videos or books without using them communicatively, or using words in ways that don't quite connect to their social meaning. And some children develop language perfectly on time and still receive an autism diagnosis later, because language is only one piece of a much larger picture. By 18 months to 2 years, the signs that were subtle in the earlier months often become clearer. You may notice that your child prefers to play alone rather than alongside other children. Not just independent play, which is healthy and normal, but a genuine lack of interest in other children as social beings. You may notice repetitive behaviors that bring intense comfort, lining up toys in a specific order, spinning wheels, opening and closing doors repeatedly, a fixation on a specific object or topic that goes beyond typical toddler enthusiasm. You may notice the transitions are unusually difficult. That changes in routine cause distress that seems disproportionate, that certain sounds or textures or lights cause a level of distress that other children don't show. You may notice that your child's play is different, less pretend play, less using a banana as a phone or a block as a car, and more functional or sensory-focused interaction with objects. None of these signs alone means autism, but together as a pattern across multiple areas of development, they form a picture that deserves attention and evaluation. Here is what is most important for you to take away from everything you just heard. Noticing these signs is not a reason to panic. It is not a reason to grieve. It is a reason to act. Because the research on early intervention in autism is among the most compelling in all of developmental science. The brain at this age is at its most plastic, its most responsive, its most capable of building new pathways when given the right support. Children who receive early intervention before age 3 show dramatically better outcomes in communication, social connection, and daily functioning than children who are identified later. This is not about fixing your child. This is about meeting your child's brain where it is and giving it exactly what it needs during the window when that support makes the most difference. So if you are watching this and recognizing your child in what you have heard, here is what you do next. You do not wait for your child to grow out of it. You do not wait until they start school. You contact your pediatrician this week and you say specifically, I am concerned about my child's social development, and I would like a referral for a developmental evaluation. You can also contact your local early intervention program directly in most countries without a referral. You document what you're seeing. You take videos of your child at play, during meal times, during social interactions. You bring those videos to appointments, and you trust yourself, because you know your child better than any chart does. And if something is telling you to look closer, that instinct deserves to be heard. Your child is not a diagnosis. Your child is a whole person with a unique brain that is already showing you who they are. The signs that appear before age 2 are not warnings. They are invitations to understand your child more deeply, to support them more precisely, and to make sure that by the time they walk into a classroom, they have already been seen, understood, and given exactly what they needed to begin.